The quantum sensor array hummed softly in the pristine laboratory of Stargazer Station, its holographic displays casting a gentle blue glow across Dr. Sarah Chen's tired face. She had been staring at the same anomalous readings for the past 6 hours, her coffee long since gone cold. The numbers didn't make sense, but they weren't lying either. "Run the simulation again," she commanded, her voice steady despite her growing unease. The holographic display shifted, showing the outer edges of the Kuiper belt where space itself appeared to be folding like intricate origami. The patterns were too precise, too structured to be natural phenomena. The station's AI responded with its usual efficiency. Simulation complete. Confidence rating, 99.8%. The gravitational distortions follow non-random patterns consistent with artificial manipulation of space-time. Sarah leaned back in her chair, her mind racing through the implications. Humanity had theorized about space-folding technology for decades, but they were centuries away from achieving it. These distortions weren't just advanced technology. They were impossibly advanced. "Contact Director Morrison," she said, gathering her data tablets. "Priority level Alpha." The director's hologram materialized in her office within minutes, his normally composed features tightened with concern. "Dr. Chen, do you know what time it is in Geneva?" "Sir, you need to see this." Sarah shared her screen, showing the time-lapse of the distortions. "We've detected multiple gravitational anomalies at the edge of our solar system. They're moving in patterns that suggest intelligent control." Morrison's hologram leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the data. "Natural phenomena. Impossible. The energy signatures are too structured. Someone is out there, sir, and they're using technology that makes our most advanced ships look like stone tools." The director remained silent for a long moment, studying the patterns. "How long until whatever this is reaches the outer colonies?" Sarah ran the calculations quickly. "At current speeds, they'll reach Europa Station in 72 hours. Neptune's research outpost in 48. Recommendations: we need to evacuate the outer colonies immediately. These distortions are powerful enough to tear apart the fabric of space itself. If whoever is creating them has hostile intentions." A warning light flashed across her console, interrupting her mid-sentence. New data poured in from the quantum array, showing massive energy spikes near Neptune's orbit. "Sir," Sarah's voice trembled slightly. "We're detecting new signatures, larger ones. They're accelerating." Morrison's hologram flickered as he accessed additional data feeds. "I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Prepare your findings for." The transmission cut off abruptly as all communications with Earth went dark. Sarah's screens filled with error messages as one by one. The quantum relays connecting the solar system fell silent. In the eerie quiet that followed, Sarah received one final automated transmission from Europa Station. The message contained no words, just a single audio file that made her blood run cold. The sound of crystalline ice cracking under immense pressure, followed by the screams of breaking metal. Then silence. Sarah stood alone in her laboratory, surrounded by blinking red warning lights and dead communication channels. Through the station's observation window, she could see the distant sun, a tiny bright point in the vast darkness. Somewhere out there, something was coming. Something that could fold space itself. Something that had just effortlessly severed humanity's interplanetary communications. She pressed her hand against the cold glass, watching as her sensors detected more gravitational distortions, drawing closer by the second. Humanity had dreamed of first contact for generations, but not like this. Not with silence and broken colonies and the terrible knowledge that they were facing something far beyond their comprehension. The quantum sensor array continued its quiet hum, counting down the moments until whatever waited in the darkness finally revealed itself to Earth. They appeared first as points of light, brighter than any star, descending through the solar system like falling angels. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from Stargazer Station as the alien vessels revealed themselves, their hulls shimmering with impossible geometries that seemed to bend both light and shadow around them. Beautiful, she whispered, even as her instruments screamed warnings about the devastating gravitational waves rippling from their passage. The ships moved with perfect grace, their formations creating patterns that seemed to echo the very mathematical constants of the universe. Earth's combined fleet scrambled to defensive positions, but they might as well have been wooden sailing ships facing modern battleships. The alien vessels simply slipped through their cordons, as if the space between them didn't exist, appearing and disappearing through localized folds in reality. The first transmission came as a soft chime that somehow bypassed all of Earth's communication systems, manifesting simultaneously in every speaker and communications device across the planet. "Children of Sol," the voice spoke in perfect English, though observers would later report hearing it in their native languages. "We are the Starborn, guardians of proper technological advancement. We have watched your progress with growing concern." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she analyzed the transmission. The technology required to broadcast simultaneously to every device on Earth, translating in real time, spoke of capabilities far beyond human understanding. The main vessel of the Starborn fleet took position above the North Atlantic, its presence causing weather patterns to shift and aurora borealis to dance in impossible colors across the sky. From its heart emerged a smaller craft, descending toward the United Nations headquarters in New York. "Your species advances too rapidly, without wisdom or proper guidance," the voice continued. "We have seen this pattern before. It leads only to devastation. We offer our guidance, our protection, and our wisdom." In the UN Assembly Chamber, representatives from every nation gathered to meet the Starborn ambassador. The being that emerged from the transport pod moved with liquid grace, its form wrapped in robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. "We come as shepherds," the ambassador spoke, its voice carrying notes of both beauty and condescension. "Your recent expansion into your solar system has been concerning, like bacteria spreading without control." Admiral Helena Torres, seated in the front row, felt her hands clench into fists as the ambassador continued. On her tablet, she watched the last fragments of data from the outer colonies, her home, her family's home, stream in. The Starborn ships had systematically isolated each settlement, cutting them off from Earth with surgical precision. "The quarantine of your outer settlements was necessary," the ambassador stated, as if discussing nothing more significant than pruning a garden. "Such unchecked growth required immediate correction. You will understand, in time, that this is for your own protection." The chamber erupted in confusion and anger. The ambassador raised a hand, and suddenly every human in the room felt a gentle pressure, a calming influence that tried to smooth away their concerns. But some emotions run too deep for even advanced alien technology to suppress. Admiral Torres stood, her voice cutting through the artificial calm like a blade through silk. "Those colonies," she said, each word precise and sharp, held thousands of people, families, children, our people. The ambassador tilted its head, and gesture almost human but not quite. "The removal of dangerous growths is sometimes necessary for healthy development. Surely you understand basic medicine." Torres took one step forward, then another. The calming field rippled around her, but her rage burned through it like a star-going supernova. "Those weren't growths," she said, her voice rising. "That was our home. Those were our people." Her next words would be broadcast across Earth, becoming the rally cry for everything that followed. "You attacked our home." The ambassador blinked slowly, genuinely puzzled by the display of emotion. "Such attachment to temporary structures seems primitive. We offer you guidance to move beyond such limitations." In that moment, humanity learned two vital truths about their visitors. The Starborn were incredibly advanced, possessed of technology that bordered on magical, and they understood absolutely nothing about the human heart. The emergency session of the United Nations stretched into its third hour. Admiral Helena Torres stood at the podium, her uniform crisp despite the chaos of the past 24 hours. Behind her, holographic displays showed the last known status of the outer colonies, each one now marked with a pulsing red light indicating complete communication blackout. The starborn vessels have established a quarantine field extending from the Kuiper Belt to Jupiter's orbit, she reported, her voice steady despite the anger burning in her chest. All attempts to breach this barrier have failed. We've lost contact with over 30,000 colonists. The starborn ambassador glided forward, its crystalline robes catching the light in ways that seemed to defy physics. Your concern for these temporary outposts is noted, but unnecessary. We have simply contained an infection before it could spread further. Dr. Sarah Chen rushed in from Stargazer Station to present her findings, watched the ambassador's movements with scientific precision. Every gesture was perfect, studied, as if the alien had learned human body language from a textbook, but missed all the subtle emotional cues. Our analysis of the quarantine field shows it's not just blocking communication, Sarah interjected, bringing up her data. The barrier is actively warping spacetime. Any matter attempting to cross it would be redistributed at the atomic level. The ambassador's expression shifted to what might have been a smile. Precisely. A clean solution to prevent further contamination. Now, shall we discuss the terms of our guidance? We have prepared a 1,000-year plan for your species-controlled development. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Representatives from the colony nations demanded answers about their citizens. Military advisors argued for immediate action. Economic experts warned of the catastrophic impact of losing the outer system resources. Torres felt something snap inside her as she watched the ambassador dismiss each human concern with elegant, practiced gestures. She thought of her sister's family on Europa Station, of the children who had never seen Earth's sky, of the pioneers who had built lives in the harsh beauty of the outer system. "Ambassador," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos, "you speak of guidance, but your first action was to isolate and possibly destroy thousands of innocent lives. These weren't military installations. They were homes, research stations, families." The ambassador tilted its head, that same studied gesture that never quite reached natural. "You misunderstand. We are saving you from yourselves. Your species spreads too quickly, develops too rapidly. Without proper control, you will only bring destruction to yourselves and others." Sarah stepped forward, her data tablets displaying the energy readings from the quarantine field. The power output of this barrier, it's not just containing, it's destroying everything that touches it. Our people out there are either dead or trapped with dwindling resources. The ambassador's next words would change everything. The loss of a few thousand specimens is statistically insignificant compared to the benefits of proper guidance. We have enacted similar corrections on hundreds of worlds. In time, the survivors always express gratitude for our intervention. The chamber fell silent. In that moment, humanity understood with perfect clarity what they were facing. Not just advanced aliens, but beings who viewed them as specimens, as bacteria to be controlled and culled at will. Torres stepped closer to the ambassador, close enough to see the subtle patterns shifting in its crystalline form. "Those specimens," she said, each word carved from ice, "were our people. Those statistical insignificances were our children." Her voice rose, carrying the weight of every lost colony, every silenced voice. "You attacked our home." The ambassador's response sealed humanity's resolve. "Your emotional attachment to temporary dwellings and replaceable units is precisely why you require our guidance. Now, shall we proceed with the implementation of proper control measures?" In the silence that followed, humanity made its choice, not in shouted declarations or dramatic gestures, but in the quiet, determined exchange of glances across the chamber. If the Starborn thought humans would quietly accept the death of their people, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. The underground facility beneath the Himalayas hummed with activity as scientists from former rival nations worked side by side. Dr. Sarah Chen studied the holographic display of recovered Starborn technology, a small fragment of their gravity manipulation system retrieved from the edge of the quarantine zone. "The principles are familiar," she explained to the assembled team. They're just operating on a scale we never imagined possible. But look here. She highlighted a section of the crystalline structure. They're using quantum entanglement to fold space, but the method isn't that different from our theoretical models. Admiral Torres watched from the observation deck as teams from China, Russia, America, and India collaborated below. 6 months ago, these nations guarded their technological secrets with fierce determination. Now, they shared everything. The Starborn had unknowingly given humanity a priceless gift: unity born from shared loss. How soon can we replicate it? Torres asked, her eyes fixed on the prototype testing chamber. Sarah adjusted her calculations. Using traditional methods. Never. But we're not trying to copy them exactly. We're building something new. Human ingenuity combined with their principles. The first tests of the hybrid drive start tomorrow. In labs across the globe, similar scenes played out. Japanese quantum computers ran simulations alongside European artificial intelligence systems. Brazilian biotechnology merged with Canadian materials science. Every breakthrough was immediately shared across a new secure network, built deep within the Earth's crust to avoid starborn detection. The Starborn ambassador continued its regular broadcasts, each message dripping with patronizing concern. Your species shows promising signs of accepting proper guidance. Soon, you will understand the benefits of controlled development. But they didn't see what was happening beneath the surface. They missed the determination in every human eye, the fierce focus in every laboratory. Their sensors, searching for traditional energy signatures, overlooked the new hybrid technologies humanity was creating. In a secured chamber deep beneath London, engineers tested a weapon that combined primitive nuclear forces with advanced quantum manipulation. The result was crude by Starborn standards, but it carried a uniquely human element of unpredictability. Their shields operate on perfect mathematical principles, a young physicist explained during the test. But we're introducing chaos theory into the equation. Sometimes the simplest solution is just to change the rules of the game. Torres walked through the Global Command Center, now housed in repurposed mine shafts beneath the Australian outback. On massive screens, she watched humanity's secret fleet taking shape. The ships weren't beautiful like the Starborn vessels. They were angular, aggressive, and carried weapons that would make their creators shudder with their inelegance. We're receiving another signal from Europa Station, her aide reported quietly. Torres tensed. The Starborn's quarantine wasn't perfect. Occasionally, quantum-entangled messages slipped through. Each one renewed humanity's determination. The messages spoke of resistance, of colonists who refused to simply vanish into statistical insignificance. "Play it," she ordered. The message was brief, distorted, but clear enough. "We still hold the inner research station. Power failing. But we found something in their barrier technology. Sending data now. Make them pay for what they did to our home." Sarah's team was already analyzing the new information when Torres reached the laboratory. The scientist's eyes shone with fierce excitement. "They made a mistake," Sarah said, pointing to her calculations. "They think we'll try to break their barrier head-on, so they've made it perfect, unbreakable. But look at these energy patterns. If we come at it sideways, using our hybrid tech." Torres smiled for the first time in months. "How long until the fleet is ready?" 2 weeks for the first wave." "But Admiral," Sarah hesitated, "this goes against everything they expect from a properly developing species." "Good," Torres replied, watching the prototype ships power up their hybrid drives. "It's time they learned that humanity doesn't follow anyone else's rules of proper development." In orbit, the Starborn ships maintained their perfect formation, unaware that beneath them, an imperfect, determined, and very human response was taking shape. The first battle began in Earth's orbit with a whisper rather than a roar. Human ships, dark and angular against the stars, emerged from their hidden lunar bases. Their hybrid drives bent light in ways that made them seem to flicker like mirages in a desert. All ships maintain radio silence. Admiral Torres commanded from her flagship. Let them think they're just seeing sensor ghosts. The starborne vessels responded exactly as predicted, their formations shifting into mathematically perfect defensive patterns. Their sensors, calibrated to detect advanced energy signatures, struggled to lock onto the crude hybrid technology of the human fleet. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from the Lunar Command Center, her fingers flying over holographic controls as she monitored the experimental drives. The quantum interference is working, she reported through the secure channel. Their targeting systems can't compensate for our intentional imperfections. The first shot wasn't fired by either fleet. Instead, a seemingly innocent piece of space debris, actually a disguised human probe, drifted into the starborne formation. When it detonated, it released a burst of chaotic quantum energy that disrupted the aliens' perfect spatial harmonics. Now, Torres ordered. Human ships surged forward, their movements deliberately erratic. They avoided the elegant attack patterns the starborne expected, instead using modified mining lasers and gravity weapons in ways their creators never intended. Where the starborne expected precision strikes, they found themselves facing what appeared to be barely controlled chaos. A starborne cruiser vanished in a flash of light as a human vessel rammed a quantum-enhanced nuclear device through its shields. The human ship was lost too, but the message was clear. Humanity would not fight according to the starborne's rules of proper warfare. Their formations are breaking, Sarah reported, watching the starborne ships struggle to adapt to human tactics. They've never faced an enemy that fights like this. The starborne ambassador's voice cut through all communications channels. This primitive display of violence confirms our assessment. Your species requires stricter control measures. Torres responded by launching the next phase. Hundreds of small drones, built from salvaged colony ships, swarmed the starborne vessels. Each drone carried a simple payload, not advanced weapons, but basic electromagnetic pulses combined with quantum disruptors. The combination wasn't elegant, but it forced the starborne to divide their attention. Status report on Europa Station, Torres demanded, even as her ship dove through the chaos of battle. Signal getting stronger, Sarah replied. The quarantine field is fluctuating. Whatever they're doing in there is helping destabilize the starborne's control. The battle raged across Earth's orbit, a dance of light and shadow as human ingenuity clashed with alien perfection. Starborne ships found their perfect formations disrupted by unpredictable attack patterns. Their advanced shields, calibrated for energy weapons, struggled against kinetic impacts combined with quantum interference. But the starborne were still devastatingly powerful. 3 human ships vanished in a reality-bending wave as one of their dreadnoughts brought its main weapon to bear. Yet even as the ships were lost, their scattered debris became new weapons, spreading chaos through the starborne's carefully calculated battlefield. They're falling back to regroup, Sarah announced, her voice tight with controlled excitement. Their battle algorithms can't predict our next moves because we're not following any standard combat doctrine. Torres watched as the starborne fleet retreated to a higher orbit, their perfect formation showing signs of disorder for the first time. Send the message to all ships. Phase 2 begins in 30 minutes. As the human fleet regrouped, Torres studied the tactical display. They had bloodied the starborne's nose, shown them that humanity wouldn't quietly accept their guidance. But this was just the beginning. The real test would come when they attempted to punch through to the outer colonies. In her command chair, Torres touched the fragment of Europa Station's hull she kept in her pocket. "We're coming," she whispered, her words meant for her family and all the others trapped beyond the quarantine field. "And we're bringing everything we've got." The quantum storm raged around Europa Station, reality itself twisting as human hybrid drives tore holes in the starborne quarantine field. Admiral Torres stood on her flagship's bridge, watching as the combined fleet pushed forward into the maelstrom. Behind them, Earth grew distant. Ahead, Jupiter's massive form beckoned. Breach point identified. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice came through the quantum-encrypted channel. Her research vessel hung back, monitoring the fluctuations in spacetime. The colonists' disruption signal is strongest here. They've been weakening the barrier for months. Torres touched the steel fragment in her pocket one last time. All ships, form up on my position. Remember your training. No perfect formations, no predictable patterns. Hit them where they least expect it. The human fleet surged forward, their hybrid drives leaving crackling trails of disturbed spacetime. Each ship carried a piece of salvaged starborn technology, modified and rebuilt with human innovation. Where the aliens sought perfection, humanity had embraced controlled chaos. The first Starbound patrol emerged from fold space, their crystalline ships gleaming. This violation will not be tolerated. The familiar patronizing voice echoed through all channels. Return to your designated space or face correctional measures. Torres answered with action rather than words. Her flagship led the charge, its hybrid weapons combining primitive nuclear warheads with quantum manipulation fields. The explosion wasn't elegant, but it tore a ragged hole in the quarantine barrier. Multiple starborn capital ships detected, Sarah reported as alerts flashed across her screens. They're attempting to seal the breach. The space around Europa Station became a battlefield unlike anything in human history. Starborn vessels moved with liquid grace, their weapons bending reality itself. But human ships darted between their formations like angry wasps, their crude but effective hybrid technology disrupting the aliens' perfect calculations. A young lieutenant's voice cut through the chaos. Admiral, reading life signs from Europa Station. The inner research center is still intact. Torres felt her heart leap. After months of silence, proof that some had survived. But the Starborn weren't going to give up their quarantine easily. Their largest vessel yet emerged from fold space, its hull rippling with enough energy to reshape continents. This ends now, the Starborn commander declared. Your resistance, while remarkable, cannot be allowed to continue. Sarah's voice turned urgent. Admiral, they're powering up something massive. Energy readings are off the charts. Torres watched as the massive Starborn vessel began to glow, its perfect form gathering power for what would surely be a devastating strike. But in that moment, she smiled. Now, Dr. Chen. Across the battlefield, hundreds of seemingly dead human drones suddenly activated. They had been scattered throughout the fighting, ignored by the Starborn as simple debris. Each one carried a fraction of Sarah's latest creation. Devices that didn't try to match Starborn technology, but instead turned their own perfection against them. The drones detonated in perfect sequence, creating a cascade of quantum disruptions. Where the Starborn expected resistance, they found their own carefully controlled spacetime being turned into a chaotic storm of possibilities. Their ship is destabilizing, Sarah reported, excitement breaking through her professional tone. The quantum feedback is overwhelming their systems. The massive Starborn vessel's perfect form began to crack, its attempts to control reality undone by humanity's willingness to embrace chaos. As it retreated in disarray, Torres gave the order she'd waited months to give. All ships, push through to Europa Station. Bring our people home. The human fleet surged forward through the gap, their hybrid drives leaving trails of disturbed spacetime in their wake. On Europa's surface, lights flickered to life in the research station as power was restored. Emergency airlocks cycled as rescue ships docked, ready to evacuate the survivors. Admiral, Sarah's voice was soft now. We did it. We prove they're not invincible. Torres watched as the first evacuation ships lifted off from Europa's icy surface. No, Doctor. We proved something more important. We proved that humanity doesn't need their kind of perfection to fight back. The battle for Europa was won, but all of them knew this was just the beginning. The Starborn wouldn't take this defeat lightly. But now humanity knew they could be beaten. The news spread across the galaxy like ripples in a quantum pond. Through captured Starborn communication arrays, humanity discovered they weren't alone in their resistance. Other species, long held under the Starborn's guidance, watched with growing fascination as the primitive humans achieved the impossible. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display in the rebuilt Europa station, studying the messages they'd intercepted. Each one told a similar story: centuries of suppressed development, technological progress held back by starborn protocols, entire civilizations shaped to fit their definition of proper growth. "They're asking how we did it," she told Admiral Torres, who was overseeing the installation of hybrid defense systems around Jupiter's moons. "Not just the technical details, but how we found the will to resist." Torres watched as a group of young starborn officers approached the station under a flag of truce. Unlike their superiors, these officers had witnessed humanity's unconventional tactics firsthand, and it had sparked something in them: curiosity. "Permission to board granted," Torres announced, after triple-checking their quantum signatures. "But at the first sign of hostile intent, we'll show them exactly how creative humans can be with emergency protocols." The meeting took place in the station's observation dome, Earth a distant blue marble visible through the reinforced windows. The young starborn officers moved with less rigid precision than their elders, their crystalline forms showing subtle signs of adaptation. "Your species continues to defy our models," the lead officer stated, but their tone held wonder rather than condemnation. "You take our perfect systems and deliberately introduce chaos. The results should be catastrophic, yet we're still here," Sarah completed. "Because perfection isn't always the answer. Evolution thrives on adaptation, on finding new ways to solve problems." The younger officer shifted, their form rippling with colors that suggested deep thought. "Our teachings say that guided development prevents species from destroying themselves. But you faced destruction and grew stronger." Through the quantum communications network, reports arrived from across the galaxy. Species that had lived under starborn control for generations began questioning their guidance. They saw in humanity's resistance a different path, one that embraced innovation and adaptability over rigid perfection. "The Council of Elders demands your immediate surrender," the young officer transmitted a message from their superiors. They threatened to implement final containment protocols. Torres smiled grimly. "Tell them to look at their long-range scans. Really look at what we've done with their quarantine technology." The officers accessed their data feeds. Their forms flickered with surprise as they realized the truth. Humanity hadn't just broken through their barriers. They had learned to adapt the technology, creating a network of quantum defenses that protected their solar system while allowing for controlled expansion. "Impossible," one whispered. "This level of adaptation should take centuries of guided development." Sarah brought up her latest research data. "We've learned more in months of fighting for survival than we might have in decades of safe, controlled growth. Sometimes pressure creates diamonds." The lead officer's next words sent shockwaves through their civilization. "We request permission to study under human guidance." Torres and Sarah exchanged glances. The irony wasn't lost on them. The supposed teachers asking to become students. But more than that, it represented hope. Hope that even the starborn could learn to see beyond their rigid beliefs. "Understanding goes both ways," Sarah offered. "We've learned from your technology, even as we modified it. Perhaps together, we can find a balance between perfection and innovation." As the young officers departed, carrying their revolutionary request to their superiors, Torres watched Earth's distant light. Humanity had done more than defend their home. They had shown the galaxy that true progress comes not from perfect guidance, but from the freedom to learn, adapt, and occasionally fail on the path to success. The grand chamber of the Starborn Council gleamed with crystalline light, its perfect geometric patterns now interwoven with deliberately imperfect human designs. Admiral Torres stood before the assembled council, her uniform adorned with both Earth's insignia and the new symbol of cooperative space development. "1 year ago, we stood as enemies," she began, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Today, we gather as partners in a grand experiment, proving that there are many paths to the stars." Dr. Sarah Chen activated the holographic display, showing the new hybrid space stations under construction throughout the solar system. Each one represented a fusion of technologies. Starborn precision merged with human innovation, creating something entirely new. The quantum harmony patterns are stabilizing. The youngest council member reported, their crystalline form shifting with excitement. The deliberate introduction of controlled chaos actually strengthens the overall structure, just as your scientists predicted. The head of the council rose, their form still radiating the old dignity, but now tempered with something new: humility. We have guided countless species across the millennia, always believing our path was the only safe route to advancement. Humanity has taught us the cost of such certainty. Around the solar system, joint human starborn teams worked to rebuild the destroyed colonies, but they weren't simply reconstructing what was lost. Each new settlement incorporated lessons learned from both civilizations. Quantum fields harmonized with traditional human engineering, creating habitats that were both beautiful and resilient. The Nova Europa project is ahead of schedule, Sarah reported, bringing up images of the massive construction around Jupiter's moon. The quantum resonance patterns have accepted the modifications. We're ready to begin large-scale civilian relocation. Torres watched as families began returning to their homes in the outer system. But now they weren't isolated pioneers. They were part of a growing community that included young starborn scholars eager to study human adaptability and representatives from other species inspired by Earth's example. We've received requests from 17 more civilizations, a human diplomat announced. They want to join the exchange program. The idea of balanced development is spreading across the galaxy. The council chamber hummed with anticipation as the final vote approached. After months of preparation, they were ready to formalize the new relationship between their peoples, not as teachers and students, but as equals with different strengths to share. Let it be recorded, the council leader declared, that the species known as humanity has demonstrated a fundamental truth we had forgotten. True wisdom comes not from perfect control, but from the balance between order and chaos, between guidance and growth. Sarah stepped forward, presenting the quantum core she and her starborn colleagues had developed. Unlike the purely crystalline structures of traditional starborn technology, this one pulsed with an inner light that shifted and changed, adapting to its environment while maintaining its essential stability. Together, she said, we've created something neither of us could have achieved alone, a technology that embraces both precision and adaptability. The core activated, its energy spreading through the chamber in a display of synchronized chaos, mathematical patterns that shifted and evolved even as they maintained their underlying harmony. It was a physical representation of their new philosophy. Torres thought of her family, now restored to their home in the outer system. When we declared, "You attacked our home," it wasn't just about territory or resources. It was about our right to find our own way forward. Now we've proved that different paths can lead to the same stars. The council leader extended their crystalline form in the traditional gesture of respect, but now it carried new meaning. The age of rigid guidance is over. Let the era of mutual growth begin. As the assembly concluded, Earth glowed distant but bright in the chamber's viewing portal. Humanity had not only defended their home, they had expanded the very definition of what home could be. In reaching for the stars, they had taught the teachers, guided the guides, and shown the galaxy that the journey of civilization had room for many paths, many dreams, and many kinds of perfection.